It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Bruce Hain. I'm a councillor with the City of Surrey, and I'm joined by Andreas Beam, who's with our Economic Development Office at the City as well. And we've had a really intense past few days with the Intelligent Community Forum, as I know you've had an intense few days as well with your sessions. But really what we've been doing is looking at and celebrating what it means to be an intelligent community, what it means to be a smart city. And that really is just taking technology and being able to use technology to make database decisions for the betterment of the community, for the advancement of economic development and so on. And over those 3 days, the top 7 cities out of 400 applicants came together. The way they do it, there's 400 applicants or so around the globe, and that's whittled down to the top 21. Interestingly, Canada had 7 of the top 21 this year in that competition. And so fully a third of the world's intelligent communities that applied this year were Canadian, and then that got whittled down to the top 7, and as you heard, 3 of the top 7 were Canadian, and of course last night Montreal came out victorious in that. But really it is a celebration and really an investigation of how can we use technology, how can we use open data, and how can we use big data not only for the betterment of our community, as I said, but as well as an economic diversification or an economic driver in our communities. And those are the things that are really sort of setting those cities apart. The City of Surrey, I'll just give you a very quick overview for those of you not familiar, and I don't blame you for being not familiar, because you would probably be far more familiar if I said I was from Vancouver, which is just sort of 30 minutes down the road from where we are. So you'd be very familiar with Toronto, but perhaps not so familiar with Mississauga, and that's the kind of the comparison that sort of we make with the City of Surrey to the City of Vancouver. We're the 12th largest city in Canada, and we're part of the Metro Vancouver region. There's 22 municipalities that make up the Metro Vancouver region that have about 2.3 million people in what we call the Lower Mainland of Vancouver. The City of Surrey itself has 530,000 residents. We're growing at 1,000 residents a month, so it's a very fast-growing community. Typically and historically, it's been a bedroom community. It started out as a farm community, and still 30% of our land mass is agricultural, but it really typically has been a bedroom community to the City of Vancouver, but that is rapidly changing, and the economic growth that's occurring in the City of Surrey is quite phenomenal, and it's developing its own economy, its own sense of self, and so on. And part of that is because it's very strategically located. We're right at the U.S. border, so we have 2 U.S. border crossings. And it's the second busiest commercial border crossing next to the Windsor, with $10 billion worth of goods going across that border each and every year. So that land crossing to the U.S. is very strategic. We also have a deep sea port as part of Port Metro Vancouver's regional port system, and it's a major east-west, north-south trucking route. So strategically, it's very well located. We talked about earlier. We talked about talent and how Canada has a lot of talent, and certainly Surrey does as well. 30% of our population is under the age of 20, so we have a very young, vibrant community. And 29% of our residents have a mother tongue other than English that would be primarily Punjabi, Chinese, Hindi, or Tagalog. So we have there's over 100 languages spoken in the city. So when companies come to Surrey and want to get that really diverse workforce, that's something that we can certainly offer. And of course, we talked about the cost of talent, and the cost of talent in Canada and on the West Coast is certainly lower than what you might expect in the U.S. as well. Surrey also is fortunate to have about 40% of the undeveloped industrial land left in the Lower Mainland, in the Vancouver region. We've got about 2,300 acres of industrial land still to be developed. Vancouver proper took a lot of its industrial land over the last several decades and converted that into residential and commercial development, so that they don't have those that industrial type land that's available. And certainly in Surrey, because we're south of Vancouver proper, the prices are certainly much more reasonable in terms of land acquisition. Surrey's been designated, and our city centre's been designated as the second metropolitan core of the region. We have this governing body called Metro Vancouver that's the coming together of these 22 different municipalities in the Lower Mainland. And so Surrey has been designated as the second metropolitan core of the region. And a few years ago, we to kickstart some of that, we moved City Hall from further south in the city to the north, to city centre. And that was really a catalyst for some very rapid growth in city centre. There's been about $3 billion worth of private sector investment into city centre since we made that move just a few years ago. And it's now home to 2 universities, to obviously our municipal works, but it's also home to 40 major projects that are going on in the area. So the skyline just looks like cranes, and I think the cranes are now our national bird in Surrey. One of the things that we tend to do particularly, well, I believe that we do very well in the city is collaboration and partnerships. And I'll just use an example here of our biofuel facility. A few years ago, we changed the way that we collected our municipal waste, and we not only did recycling and regular solid waste, but we also then separated our organics. And what we did was we did a 3P project with the federal government and with the private sector to develop a biofuel facility, and it's the only closed-loop biofuel facility in North America. And what that means is that we collect the organics at curbside, we take them to the biofuel facility, it's converted into clean natural gas, and then that fuels the waste collection trucks that pick up the biomaterial, so it creates that closed-loop system. The excess gas we can put back on the grid as green gas and sell it back to the distributor, saving taxpayers a lot of money. But that's an example of partnerships, not only with senior levels of government, but with the private sector. And we went as far away as Holland to find this technology and to work with foreign investors and foreign partners to be able to bring that technology to Surrey, and that partnership has worked very, very well. We've launched an economic diversification strategy in the city, and we've got 5 sort of priority sectors that we're working with. And really the idea behind this is to look at emerging sectors, look at strong sectors that we can really compete in our region and within our community to provide jobs, obviously, for our young growing population. And I'll just give a couple of quick examples in each of them. The first one being clean tech. Surrey's home to 10% of BC's clean tech companies already, and we're attracting more and more of them each and every day. Foresight is Western Canada's only clean tech accelerator, and they moved to Surrey about a year ago, and have been attracting the startups and working with startups and angel investors and so on in that clean tech space. We also have PowerTech Labs, which is the research arm of BC Hydro, the province's hydro supplier. And so PowerTech Labs is there doing a lot of research and development in partnership with the universities, with the city, and with the private sector, and so on. And Simon Fraser University is also one of the leading researchers in the clean tech space. We have a very robust health tech cluster in Surrey called Innovation Boulevard, and really that's a coming together of various levels of government with academia and with the private sector to do research and development, but not for the sake of research and development, but for the sake of commercializing products. And it's been very successful so far. It's been in about its 4th year now. And it was started by the City of Surrey, Simon Fraser University, and the local health authority. And it's quite unusual to have a municipality, to have a city involved in this, directly into this type of thing. But what we found is that the city can act as that concierge, that bringing together of all the pieces and matching up investors, matching up clinicians, matching up the universities and so on, and being that sort of matchmaker. And it's worked very, very well for us so far. The next one is advanced manufacturing, and here we've got companies producing wind turbines in the automotive sector, in food processing, and in plastics. And the city, again, has partnered with local universities to create a national center of excellence for advanced manufacturing and clean tech. And it's really going to be training that next generation of automation and Industry 4.0 and supporting those companies, because we want not only to start those companies here, but we want to keep them here. So it's an emerging sector for us as well. Another one, I mentioned that 30% of our land mass is agricultural, and so we've taken to agri-innovation and put research and development into agri-innovation. That land mass, that 1/3 of our land mass being agricultural, represents about $150 million a year in agricultural sales, and so it's an important piece of our industry. And we've created a living lab with a biopod facility and partnered again with universities. And I keep coming back to that idea of partnerships, but that's something that we do extremely well, I think, at the city. And finally, the creative industry. And the Lower Mainland, the Vancouver area, is sort of known as Hollywood North. And the reasons for that, part of them are, of course, tax incentives, but other parts of that are just spectacular scenery, spectacular backdrops for films and for film production as well. There's a very concentrated mass of talent in digital post-production in the Vancouver area, and Surrey's no exception. And just recently, Skydance Media has opened up a studio in Surrey, and they're a California-based production company doing films like Mission Impossible and Terminator, Genesis. And they've opened up, as I said, a studio in Surrey that has 5 sound stages and a production staff of about 400 people. So those are just a couple of quick examples of some of the sectors that Surrey is working on. And again, if I can leave you with anything, it's the fact that if you want to look at somewhere on the west coast of Canada that gives you not only a gateway to the Asia Pacific, but is also very, very closely linked to the U.S. through Seattle and so on, it's a marvelous strategic location to be in. And not that I know anything much about foreign investment, but if you're coming to Canada, take a look at what Target did and then do exactly the opposite. So with that, thank you very much.